Spider-Man swings in with a new trailer, and we've got some thoughts on what this means for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I struck out with movies this weekend, so I'll let you know what to avoid.
Video games get made into movies all the time, some good, some bad. We look at the challenge of adapting video games into movies on this new episode of The Geek State.
They're brothers. They're plumbers.
Oh no! Mario! Luigi!
They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite.
It's incredible! Stand by alert. This is it.
Thank you, but your princess is in another podcast. This is The Geek State.
We're trying to figure out how to turn Dr. Mario into the next feature film blockbuster. This is The Geek State, the podcast about all the cool stuff going on in the world of geek, brought to you weekly here on this here podcast. Whether it's comics, video games, movies, we're going to talk about it, especially if it's interesting to us. And we find a kind of angle to take at it. This week, we're going to be really looking at video games that have been turned into movies, and the good ones, the bad ones. What video games that are out there that could possibly be turned into movies. We'll, of course, be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog and a bunch of other stuff. But I can't do this show on my own because then it's boring. My buddy James, all the way up in North Texas. How's it going? You ready to talk some video games?
I am always ready to talk some video games. It's going great. How's it going in South Texas?
I know.
South Middle Texas.
South Middle, right. From the north to the south, we are covering all things geek in the great state of Texas. No, it's good. It's good. We had some rain, and then now it was beautiful and sunny. Spent all Sunday afternoon at the Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, and quite possibly the greatest. I don't know what was going on, but it was probably the greatest Sunday I've ever spent at a Six Flags theme park, and I don't know if it had to do with the bad weather that came before it. Maybe the school kids are getting ready for their annual standardized test, and it was also the opening day of the water park at that same theme park. Literally zero lines, and I'm not talking about like walk up and then wait for the next train. When we went to one of the rides, which is called the Goliath, James, we walked on, and they were waiting. Like the train wasn't full enough for it to safely ride. They were waiting.
They needed more people.
Yes. So we were like getting on the ride as they were like waiting for people to line up. It was awesome. And then
it was also Cinco de Mayo, Chris. That might have deterred some folks. They had some other plans celebrating. Is it Mexican Independence Day? Is that what Cinco de Mayo is?
Nope. No. And that's the thing. That's a common misconception. It's and I'm gonna get these facts wrong, but it's Cinco de Mayo is it's more of a significant, more of a celebrated holiday in America. But it was a battle of Puebla, and I think they defeated the French. So.
Well,
Mexican Independence Day is a different
I'm glad
day.
They did that for discount margaritas.
Right, exactly. Applebee's all month long. You have the Dollarita. Go and drink whatever's in that thing.
Whatever may or may not be in that.
It's neither. It's the only thing about that name that's true is it's a dollar.
They do have that Fiesta Line chicken, though, and that is one of the greatest chain restaurant meals of all time. So.
Applebee's, if you're looking to get into the whole podcast sponsorship game, I don't have an Applebee's within normal driving distance of me, but if you want to, just hit us up on Twitter, man.
I don't either, but I'm sure our listeners do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Applebee's nationwide. So Mr. Applebee's, I'm assuming that's your name. Give us,
It's just Applebee, Mr. Applebee, because it is his.
That's true. It's Mr. Applebee.
It's his neighborhood grill.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you had a chance to do this weekend or even know about it, because I remember we talked about it on our episode about Batman. We had an 80th anniversary episode a few episodes back. So if you haven't heard that, go into the feed, check it out. We talked about all the cool stuff going on with the 80th anniversary of Batman, but Batman is back. In theaters. You can go see, like, I think today, which is Monday, I think they were showing Batman Returns. Didn't get a chance to do that, but I did get to go see Fathom Events is doing this re-release. saw the original 1989 Michael Keaton Batman in theaters, and I honestly don't think I saw this when it came out in theaters. Now, James, I know you're about to say, well, I wasn't born yet.
I was born. Thank you very much. Yeah. I just wasn't going to the theater.
Yeah, and thank you for not being drugged to that movie, because as a baby, that's just wrong. But I don't think I ever saw it in theaters, and it was freaking amazing. From the music, and it's been years since I've seen that movie. Like, I can't remember the last time I actually sat down to watch the original 1989 Batman. And it plays so well because for one, at least for me, I hadn't seen it in so long, so I'd forgotten most of the beats, most of just the small stuff. Like when the film opens, we've got the family that's leaving a theater and they go down a back alley, and I was like, did they really cast the Waynes as kind of middle class and not very sophisticated and all this? And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. No, this is not what's going on. I totally forgotten how the whole thing opened. So, it was a one-day type thing, but they're still showing it. They're still showing the rest of the Batman series. But by now, if you're listening this a little bit later after release, you're probably stuck with Batman and Robin, so maybe you skip it. But
I had to pre-order my tickets for that one, sir.
Are you going?
No.
Okay.
Because what did kill the dinosaurs? It was the Ice Age.
The Ice Age. Oh gosh, that movie I saw in theaters, but I did not pay for it. It was one of those radio station promotion type things where I
definitely saw it in theaters, but I was young enough to enjoy it. So
God, all right, everybody, chill. What about you, man? You have a good weekend?
I had a decent weekend. I found some time to watch a few movies. One of those was Extremely Wicked, Incredibly Evil, and Vile, which is the Netflix Zac Efron Ted Bundy film. Just recently came out. And I'm going to be honest, Christopher, it's not good. It's not very good.
And you watched the documentary, right?
I did. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they have to make a movie out of it. So they play into very heavily into like his girlfriend that he was dating at the time in that relationship. Okay. But it just has a lot of like very hard cuts and just like scene changes, and it's just very there's a lot of like 30 and 45-second scenes, if that makes sense, that are just like almost quick. It's almost hard to watch because it's like boom, 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 boom. They're hitting all these points, which obviously the movie takes place over a number of years. So you kind of have to do that. But I don't know. I wasn't super impressed. Obviously, it's on Netflix. So if you have nothing better to do, go see it or watch it. Right. Cue it up if you're into that kind of movie. But it's not like gory or grotesque or anything like that. That bothered me in any way, but it does have Zac Efron and his abs. They make an appearance a few times.
It's in his rider. It's like it's in his contract.
I don't know that Ted Bundy was known to be good looking. I'm not sure he was the number one best looking person on the planet.
He wasn't Zac Efron good looking, right? No, exactly. No. I think if I was Zac Efron, which I've been mistaken once or twice, I would want to have like all of that documented so well in my younger years, because beauty fades. Except some people seem to slip past that, but But you know what? It's good that you're saying. Tell me about
little TRT, a little testosterone replacement therapy, a little bit
surgery. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's nothing better to do but to spend 8 hours in the gym every day.
Yeah. Personal trainers, nutritionalist, whatever. Yeah. So, that's good though. So if there's folks out there like looking forward to watch something that's more than just Zac Efron's abs, James says, skip it. Right? Yeah.
I do say skip it.
It's a skip. Well, something that's not a skip is the headlines. We got some Spider-Man stuff to talk, so let's jump right in. Well, it's always a good day, James, when we schedule a podcast recording on a day where big trailer stuff actually lands early in the morning as opposed to the seconds afterwards. I know last week we recorded a show and then boom, there was the catastrophe that was Sonic the Hedgehog. We'll talk about that when we talk video games to movies. But we awoken to brand new Spider-Man stuff in the we're in the post-in-game world, or are we? We're not going to go into spoilers in this trailer. There is a little caution from Tom Holland at the beginning of this trailer saying, hey, like, this is there's stuff that spoils in-game. So if you haven't seen in-game yet, don't Spider-Man trailer. But we'll try to talk about some of the things that don't really relate to it, but we apologize in advance if something slips past. But this is it a spoiler to say this movie takes place after Endgame? Because I don't think it does.
No, that's not a spoiler.
Okay, then that's fine. We're gonna.
I think that's pretty obvious that the movie takes place after Endgame.
I would hope so.
Whether or not it occurs in the same universe as Endgame,
very true. Absolutely. Well, no, let's talk about that, because in this we get Nick Fury saying that Mysterio, who we've seen as Jake Gyllenhaal, he is playing a guy named Mr. Quentin Beck. That's Mysterio's real name. And Mysterio says to Spider-Man, we could have used someone like you back on my Earth. And first of all, can I just apologize in advance for all of the numerous mistakes that I made on the last episode of the show? I was too excited to talk about Endgame. I called Natasha Natalie. I said Gamora I said Nebula when I meant to say Gamora. There were so many things, and I appreciate everybody calling me out on it, because it's keeping me accountable. I'm trying to think about stuff, but I get excited and my mouth says words that my brain isn't like fully functioning yet. So Mysterio, Mr. Beck, Quentin Beck says to Spider-Man, we could use someone like you back on my Earth. Nick Fury says that Mr. Beck's from Earth, but not our Earth. And straight up, Spider-Man's like, what, like the multiverse? So let's talk about the multiverse, because going after Endgame, this does, if this is true, if we're talking about the multiverse being integrated somehow into this new MCU, doesn't this give future Marvel movies a lot more, I guess, like leeway? Right?
Yeah, I mean, they can literally do anything when there's a multiverse. The only downside to having a multiverse is confusing the common customer. So you have to do them. I think you'd have to do them far between one another. But I mean, you can literally do anything with a multiverse, because it's like, oh, that didn't happen in this universe. Everything else is the same, but this is one splinter. Captain America stayed back, or whatever, know, like that type of thing. Right.
And let's just kind of dive into that, because this could mean, if they wanted to, if Marvel really wanted to, they could bring, say, a Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Into this and say, well,
who would be a great Cyclops,
I think so too. He has the personality, the demeanor, the ability.
He can sing good.
He can. Yeah, I got a Facebook thing saying like he's doing a whole tour and he's coming to town. And I was like, nope, not unless he's gonna break out into some like berserker rage. I'm not down to spend a bunch of money to go see Hugh Jackman sing a bunch of Oklahoma songs. But anyways, I think they could. I mean, this could be a great way for them to explain away or bring into. Kind of the whole, they could bring in stuff into the MCU that isn't really a part of the Earth that we know. Like this could explain mutants. Like they could keep the X-Men franchise when they eventually get around to rebooting that. They could keep that all separate and say, this is all in this other multiverse that we've set up in our main MCU. So now you understand that this is Earth, whatever. And then the MCU is Earth, whatever. I know in the comics, like the main Earth is Earth 616, right? It's like that's like the mainline series. But I can see your point about confusing, because it's not a spoiler, but I'm not going to say who. But people leave us. People are no longer in the who are no longer alive at the end of Endgame, but they could be in this other multiverse. So you could bring these people back, and that could be definitely very confusing.
Or they could be replaced by other types of people, or I mean, you can literally do anything. So like Iron Man can be Iron Woman, all that type of thing.
Right. They could bring in like in Thor, what's her name? I know Natalie Portman plays her.
Jane.
Yeah, so Jane Foster. Right, she is. I don't think she's currently Thor, but she was Thor.
She was Lady Thor, yeah.
Yeah, like they could bring her in from the multiverse, and she could be Thor in this current universe. So I think it's an exciting possibility. I do think that, and some fans online I've seen too have kind of gone off on this thing saying it's like kind of a cop out, like, oh, it's the multiverse. Like, you see this all the time on like the DC TV shows. But there's something about this because they're setting up Mysterio in this trailer to be this hero, this good guy. He's like as if he was kind of like an Avenger in his world, and now he's somehow in our world, and he's like kind of positioning himself as this like big hero for this attention and stuff. And for, people who know Mysterio and his character, like he's a freaking liar. Like this guy is a con man. Right. He's a
special effects artist.
Yeah, exactly. Like back in the day, he was like a stunt man, special effects guy. Everything was all sleight of hand and tricks and stuff. So like, I think for the mass consumption, like the main people who don't know anything about this guy, they're setting him up as this like future hero, someone who's going to be a big part of the MCU, but I can't imagine them saying, okay, we got this great Spider-Man villain, let's turn him into a hero for this movie, right? Like he's got to be lying and he's got to be the bad guy.
I would assume so, but also they've made changes to things that happen in the comics. I mean, we literally saw the full Thanos battle with the full Thanos story without even hardly a mention of Adam Warlock. So, which is kind of crazy.
That's for Asgardians Volume 3, I'm sure. That's like James Gunn's baby. Like he's been setting him up. Yeah, and yet no, that's absolutely right. And I think there was something I saw. It was a panel, and it was like Thanos. This is an old comic, but it was like Thanos in a helicopter, and he was like he ends up getting arrested or something. Like it's fine that they make
perfect sense.
It's fine that they make changes. That they adapt it for audiences. I do really enjoy seeing Jon Favreau getting so much screen time. I think he's his character Happy is a great character, and I like the relationship that he's got with Tom Holland as Spider-Man and stuff. And we have to assume the European vacation and stuff doesn't go as planned, and but the movie's coming out, and tickets are on sale right now, and I don't have them because I don't know when my time off will be this summer, so it's stressing me out, James. Like,
I'm sure you'll be able to see it. The good news is you can easily disconnect from the internet.
Yes.
So you won't get spoiled on anything.
Yeah. For those unfamiliar, I basically work in the great outdoors for 2 months out of the year, and I don't have that much internet connection, but I try to stay as connected as possible and reach out and be on social as when I can. But yeah, it's stressing me out just a little bit, but I'm not too concerned. I'll probably end up seeing it a day or two after it's released, and it'll be fine. But really looking forward to it. Any big takeaways from this? Anything that surprised you or made you look forward to this a little bit more?
I think just the introduction of Mysterio by But Fury was kind of interesting. I didn't think that I didn't see that happening. I didn't see that connection already existing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was probably the biggest, like, whoa, that's kind of strange. But no, everything else, I mean,
looks
I'm
great.
excited to see it. Yeah. It looks like it's going to be just as good, if not better, than Homecoming.
And I do, yes, agreed. And not that Homecoming's bad. I enjoyed that a lot, but
it's great.
It's great. I think this is going to do a lot of heavy lifting because I honestly, I think we're going to go for a while without another Marvel movie. So I think this is going to do a lot of setup. I think there's going to be a lot of universe building and rebuilding.
Right.
For what the MCU is going to be post Endgame. So it's going to be pretty exciting. We'd love to hear what you thought of the latest Spider-Man trailer. You can always hit us up on our social media. We are on Twitter at The Geek State Pod, on Facebook.com/The Geek State, and Instagram at The Geek State Podcast.
Pick up your visuals, counting.
This is a feature presentation.
And now, on with the show.
Hollywood has constantly tried to take the popularity of video games, whether it's Super Mario Brothers, or it's Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, etc., etc. They've tried to harness that success, those millions of dollars and billions of dollars in that whole industry, and make them into these big budget movies. And man, have they had the hardest time. And we're going to talk about that. James is our resident video game expert, and he's going to know a lot more about video games and stuff than I will. But I have some particular favorites we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of look at some of the best and the worst video games that have ever been turned into movies. Some of the upcoming titles that are being adapted from video games. But James, just real quick, what do you think it is that makes video games so hard to adapt? What is it?
So I think it's kind of two things. The first being back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s when they were doing it, I think that they didn't have enough to go off of to create a world. Like, you make a Mortal Kombat movie. Well, what do those characters do when they're not standing across from one another fighting?
Right.
It's like, that's all you have to go off of is these, and the paragraph backstory or whatever. So you have to make a lot up, and that's going to rub people the wrong way. You have to make Goombas look like giant lizards for some reason, that type of thing. Where and also the technology. Like, I'm sure that if they made the Mario Brothers movie now, it would be drastically different.
It'd be animated.
Of the way. Yeah, but just because of the technology, you have so much better technology. You can make a Goomba walk around if you want to, much like Detective Pikachu.
Absolutely.
You can make it kind of in that style. So, but that just 100% didn't exist unless you did it hand drawn like Roger Rabbit or something, which would look kind of ridiculous too. But and then I think a lot of things for like newer properties where you have stuff like The Last of Us, where everyone says talks about how great of a movie that would make. It's kind of like, that's already a movie. It's 14 hours and you play through it. Right.
Yeah.
And to try and condense that down into a 2-hour story is just not feasible. You don't have time to create. I don't feel like you would have time to create the relationships that exist in that movie or in the game in a movie.
Yeah,
quickly.
Exactly. So. And I think and on that you're right, because that's kind of the avenue that seems so easy to take, is take something that plays very cinematic and then condense it down, because the thing that makes something like The Last of Us work is because you spend a lot of time with these people and you go through everything. And I think that's so true. Going back to what you were saying earlier about like the early days, I remember being so incredibly pumped about this Super Mario Brothers movie, which sometime last week I went searching for it because it's not available streaming on like Netflix or a Hulu and any of that. But there is like there's a fan edit on YouTube. And they basically they took out some stuff. They took out some weird music, and it plays a little bit better. It's still the movie that it is. You can't change that. And it brought back all these memories, because I remember actually really liking this movie, and it's universally panned. Nintendo never made another movie after it. I bet they were queued up to do more, and there's of course the rumors that they're gonna do more now. But this movie is exactly what you were saying. You didn't have that much stuff to work to. Now, sure, back in the days, right? Your NES games used to come with those fun instruction books, and it had, especially with Mario Brothers, every bad guy, you could read a little bit about them and all that. But what we got was
every block was comprised of a toad.
Oh, right, exactly. It's very, very dark. But like the world, one of the things. Here's one of the things that they did right. I'm stretching. This is such a stretch. Super Mario Brothers did the right thing by bringing the Mario Brothers into the world of the game. Now, it wasn't the game we were familiar with at all, but they didn't try to do what some other games do, where you've got kind of this high concept-y kind of idea, which is like, oh, what about if it's our world and this character from another thing somehow showed up in our world? And where Mario Brothers failed was it didn't look anything like what we knew. Like, right.
Because it probably would have been way too expensive, and
absolutely,
they wouldn't have been able to do it well. I mean, I don't even know how they would have done it back then, other than doing a fully animated background.
It would have had to have
Mr.
been
Bluebird on My Shoulder style. I don't know the name of the song. Zippity Doo. Zippity Doo.
Song of the South. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Song of the South. There you go.
You can't do that now because it's just super racist. But
completely different reasons.
That's like it's the one movie you will not find on Disney Plus. But it's still, Super Mario Brothers had it had stuff that I had forgotten all about. Like I'd forgotten that there's that Toad's in it. Kind of, it's a dude. And then you have, well, of course, Yoshi's in it, and I thought Yoshi was like the one part that was the most like what we knew. It was a dinosaur. It was a nice, friendly, cool dinosaur. But it had Dennis Hopper as Koopa. Man, how can you hate this? Like, how can you? I can
say that sentence again to yourself.
All right, but the other, you're right. It's nostalgic, and I think that's what it is. I mean, come on, you got Bob Hoskins as Mario and John Leguizamo as Luigi. But I do like that they kind of they explained how John Leguizamo could be Mario's brother. It's because he's not really his brother; he's like an adoptive brother, basically. So that's how they get around the obviousness that doesn't work. Wing Commander is just an honorable mention because I thought this was going to be so cool. We were in that drought, when there was no Star Wars, nothing like there wasn't much like this out there. And I remember there was a Wing Commander movie a video game that Mark Hamill did some of the live action kind of cinematics for. So I was really pumped about it, and then it was really bad. So, but let's talk about it. Let's jump. We're going to skip a few things, James. We'll go on to the some of the best and the worst. If you're interested, Rotten Tomatoes has a listing of best and worst, and they're sorted by their own Rotten scale. And we've kind of gone through. Well, James has really, and picked out some of the best and the worst. But James, let's go with the worst, and we found a common denominator.
Yeah, so another issue with video game movies is that they keep giving them to the same person. So if we look at I'm just taking, so I think he has probably 10 movies on this list, something around that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And if you take, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you take 6 of them and you calculate the full Rotten Tomatoes score of all 6 of those movies, it is 19.
Yes.
19% over 6 movies. We have a 0, a 1, a 3, 2 4s, and a 7.
Oh, what is the 7?
7 is Postal.
Okay.
And that's probably just got it probably has 13 reviews, and one person was like, I love it.
Describes my life. I love it.
Yeah.
U-Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, U-Bowl. I'm sorry, I didn't mention his name, but yes, U-Bowl. And I've seen a number of his films, and they're all terrible.
I can't remember. There's a backstory behind this, and we should do some sort of in depth on one of these. We should force ourselves to watch one of these, so you don't have, so the listeners at home don't have to, and just kind of figure out what was it, why was he getting all of these licenses, and how did that all work. But let's not dwell on the worst, because we'll definitely talk about something that's pretty terrible coming up. We'll talk about Sonic, but best, and this is according to Rotten Tomatoes, or is this your own?
So that was kind of my list. We can go through a little bit of Rotten Tomatoes.
I was just going to mention this looks about right with Rotten Tomatoes.
It's pretty close.
Except the newest Tomb Raider has the best. I think. Which
I saw, and I agree, is also very good. I didn't even think about that one when I was just off the top of my head, naming movies. But the Rotten Tomatoes, they go with Tomb Raider. Rampage is up there. Okay. Another one that I didn't think of but loved as a kid was Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
Oh, dude, do you remember when they were teasing? When the trailers for that, the photorealistic CG stuff at the time was just the first teaser was just a close up of an eye blinking, and it was just holy crap! This is ridiculous. I've never seen this before.
And it had Alec Baldwin and Steve Buscemi, so you can't really be upset at that. But I think an honorable mention should be Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which is, I don't know, it wasn't a theatrical movie, which is probably why it's not on this list. Mm-hmm. But that movie was solid, if you like Final Fantasy VII. And then they have Angry Birds, and it kind of goes downhill from there. But one, I think it's number 7 on their list, that is probably number 1 in my heart, is Mortal Kombat.
The first one.
Well, yes, the first one. It is 100% nostalgia based. I still remember this, being struck at the scene of Kano sitting at the dinner table with Goro. I remember I remember it scene for scene. I can remember this movie. And I don't know. I loved it when I was a kid. I watched it. I wore out the VHS of this film.
I will say this movie lands on my list as well, even though I didn't put one together. For just the soundtrack, just for the song that everybody knows, like that
the
right there
remix.
Like it wins the movie right there. Like I agree with you on the nostalgia part of it and everything like that, but that is a classic for that song and that song only. Like that was probably one of the first songs I ever burned onto a CD. Like when I got a CD burner back in like 97.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, noise. Yeah, I think if you ever want to figure out what movies looked like in the mid 90s, the best thing to do is to Google the Goro Johnny Cage fight scene. And that is literally all you have to do to see how bad things were for us.
or Google the trailer for Double Dragon. It is the most nonsensical trailer I have ever seen. The music that's used in this thing, it makes no sense. It's all noise. I was the target audience at this time when this movie came out, and it makes absolutely no sense. But continue. What else makes your list the best?
I would say one of the top ones is Silent Hill. I still don't know what that movie's about, but for some reason it still strikes me. I would throw Resident Evil on here just because of the volume, and they wouldn't have made 7 of them if people weren't enjoying them. So
that's true.
It's like if they made 7, they made a lot.
They made a lot.
Exactly how many it is, but and then the last one I put on my list was Ratchet and Clank. It's a CG movie, and I mean it's it's more for kids, obviously, but it's definitely enjoyable.
Probably the most faithful.
Yes,
and it has 100%. some of the original voices and stuff as well. I think
absolutely.
James Arnold Taylor's in that as well. Resident Evil. I think it was Apocalypse. I've seen a few of these. Most of the time, it's not by choice. It's if you have friends over and we've gone to Redbox or streaming or something, and I was like, oh, we're gonna watch. I think Resident Evil Apocalypse. I was like, oh, I kind of like this. It had kind of a Mad Max kind of vibe.
Yes, that is Apocalypse.
But
I have seen that
fire
one.
and stuff.
Or Extinction. Extinction.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's called Extinction.
Well, I know that I remember I liked Apocalypse.
Yeah,
so
Apocalypse is the second one. That's the one with Nemesis in it.
Yes. Okay. Dig it. That was cool. Yeah, and kind of Mia Jovovich has sort of just got that character on lock. Like I think like, yeah, sure, she was in Fifth Element, but I think like she's living her life now because of Resident Evil.
And she should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think what else makes my list of best. Like I feel like I went through this list and found that I hadn't seen as many as I kind of expected. I would definitely Mortal Kombat, Super Mario Brothers, only because of the nostalgia thing. It's not a good movie at all. Shoot, I do remember enjoying the Lara Croft Tomb Raider only because we did an episode of our other podcast, Movie Crash, on that one, and I had a good time with it. Oh, Warcraft, really wanted this to be really good, and I really did not enjoy that one.
Yeah, I rented it and tried to watch it twice and failed both times. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah,
but.
Prince
it
of
has Ben
Persia?
Foster in it, who I really like. I like Ben Foster a lot.
Yeah, he's
but
good. Is he
couldn't carry it?
He was in he was in an X-Men movie. I think he was Angel.
Yes, was he Angel?
In the third
Last
one.
Stand. Yeah.
The one
Last
we
Stand.
forget
That's
about.
That's the one I didn't see.
You don't have to. It's fine. So let's talk about we got some movies that are coming up that are based on video game properties. Let's start with a good one. We got Detective Pikachu opening up this weekend. This is this movie that I can't remember if we were doing S'more Geeks, the old podcast, when we heard about this. I want to say we did.
I think so.
It's probably one of the last ones.
Yeah, and we brought up it was when they were casting the voice, and everyone thought it was going to be Danny DeVito.
Oh my god, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But we got stuck with Ryan Reynolds. But so this is opening this weekend. Definitely will be seeing this. And reviews right now are really good. And here's, besides the fact that it's Pokemon and everybody, it's wildly popular. It's worldwide. They've done something with it that's really cool. They didn't make it at least from what we've seen, they didn't take the route of, let's make a Pokemon movie where it's about a kid who's going to become a Pokemon trainer, and he's going to have to battle a bunch of people and like basically just repeat the game. They're doing this whole different, there's a twist on it, but we're in a world that has Pokemon. This isn't like it's Earth and a Pokemon comes through some sort of dimensional something and now we have a Pikachu and like, what do we do with this thing? Let's hide it and let's treat it like E.T., right?
Right.
So this is...
Yeah. It's just a world in which humans and Pokemon exist.
Right, and we're just sort of like, okay, this is the world that we're in, and go. Like that's cool, and that's I appreciate that, and I think that's why it's doing so well with this early buzz and stuff. And granted, we'll save our opinions so we've seen it and all that, but let's talk about the absolute failure of a launch when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out the day after we published our last episode of the podcast, which granted we would never have talked about it because last episode we were in depth into Endgame. So if you just recently saw Avengers Endgame, go check back our last episode and hear our thoughts on all the stuff that happened in that. But so first of all, this is definitely aimed at a younger audience, flat out. Like this is not a movie for us, James.
No, I don't think so. It's definitely aimed at a younger audience, and they did not give a crap what anyone who loves Sonic cared about.
Not at all. First of all, it's barely Sonic. Can we just get to the character, the way what Sonic looks like? He's barely recognizable as Sonic. Like it's like a squint and okay, well, yeah, I guess so because he's got shoes and he's got those running shoes and he's got the spiky hair and he's blue.
Yes.
But there's something weird about his body. Like, there's something that makes me think, like, he needs to be wearing shorts. Like, I don't...
Well, yes, it's very human-like.
Yes.
So it's not... It doesn't look like an animal. It looks like a human. And I think... Like, I don't know, because I don't know anything about this type of stuff. But I would assume that they did a lot of motion capture for him, and it's way easier to just animate the motion capture on a human body.
That's so true.
I think that it might have been a big cost-cutting thing where they did motion capture for all of his movements and in the scenes and just, pretty much paste, that body over top of it.
Yeah.
And so they needed it to stay human-looking so that they didn't have to reanimate everything.
This could be something, too, where it is something like that, where they took two different approaches. Detective Pikachu goes and says, okay, this is what Pokemon look like, so they have to look like this.
Right.
There's weird looking Pokemon. And this one, they were like, no, we want to make this character look like he could exist in our world. So he has to, he can't look like a cartoon character. He has to kind of look like something else. Which, it's a blue something else with human baby teeth. It's so, and also Sonic, I was looking at his character at Six Flags because they had a bunch of stuffed ones that you could win if you threw a ring around a thing. Sonic doesn't have like two eyes. He kind of has like this one,
like a bridged eye.
Yeah, like it's and that's weird to see. I think that's part of what makes that character so hard to recognize as Sonic. When he doesn't have that, but how do you make that look realistic? Because it's so cartoony. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers to this. But
why not, Chris?
I don't know. But I feel bad for James Marsden. Yeah, poor old Cyclops from the old X-Men. He's basically starring in this is like Hop 2. Like
yes,
there's like similar scenes.
They were like, he's got the acting chops for this one.
They didn't even film new stuff. This is all just B-roll Hop footage, and they just re-CGI'd the character that's in the car with them. That's great. But real quick, we'll move on because we've got some great feedback from listeners. So Jim Carrey is in this thing.
Yes.
And I it's like the people, whoever's directing it or whatever the character or something, it was sort of like, all right, Jim, you've done some great stuff, but what we really liked is your early work. So just do whatever you want. Just whatever.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
It's not funny.
But he's not from Sonic's world. He's like a human. Like I'm so
I don't know enough
confused.
about Dr. Robotnik or whatever, like from the Sonic.
Does anyone? Is there some like Dr. Robotnik lore master out there?
There's a lot of Sonic. Oh, there's gotta be. Well, there was Sonic animated stuff. Like there's a cartoon out there that exists.
Yeah, and he loved chili dogs. Not one mention of chili dogs in this trailer.
Fail. This is going to be... Well, I do have some good news. We'll wrap up our Sonic because it was terrible. And I was like, we can't do a show about video games and movies without bringing up Sonic the Hedgehog. This thing is a disaster. It looks awful. But I will say the people, the bigwigs, are listening because the director, who I don't know, not personally,
it's his directorial debut.
Oh.
So, yeah, this is rough. Oh. This is a rough one.
So he goes on Twitter and says... Thank you, everybody, for your feedback and your criticism. We want to make sure that this character is done right, and we're going to redesign this character. And it was like hashtag, fix it fast. This movie comes out like in the fall. So,
yeah, I don't know that you're going to be able to fix it that fast.
Ooh, I saw some fun, some suggestions on Twitter. There was somebody who did like a Danny DeVito face. I also saw a Watto from Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. Like, honestly, it was a little better. So we reached out to our listeners and said, hey, what movie, what video game would you turn into a movie? What can you see? And I kind of threw the caveat: don't throw out Zelda, don't throw out Metroid. Those are the low hanging fruit. We know those would make decent films. Okay, we get it. What are the ones that come in? So hot off the very first comment I got was from Jessica, who said Tetris. Now, some of these I'm taking seriously, and some of them I think are a little tongue-in-cheek, but she says Tetris, 100% there for the music. She says that Matthew McConaughey is a star, obviously, because the angles are all right.
I see what she did there.
I do believe at some point, or it is still in works, that there is a Tetris movie somewhere in development.
I'm actually pretty sure that it is multiple movies.
Oof.
If I remember correctly. I think we talked about this.
I do. I remember this
briefly.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I like Joe's answer. I agree with him. Earthbound is essentially Stranger Things already, which Earthbound would have made an excellent film. But he says I would watch a big studio funded Star Fox.
Yep. We got that a lot.
TC, is that TC? Yeah. TC also said Star Fox, so which would be cool. You'd have to make some design choices early on as to how you want to design those characters.
Yeah, and I think that would be that kind of falls into the Pokemon thing. I think you could do it because yes, in Star Fox we're dealing with all animal and anthropomorphic, right? Like there's no humans in the actual Star Fox lore. But in what's the Switch game that you played?
Starfield. Starfield?
No, that doesn't sound right.
Star something.
Well, the one with the toys. That's got some humans in it, so it could be this. You got humans
Starlink,
and you got
Starlink.
There we go. That's it. That could be cool. We got that a lot. I didn't record everybody who said Star Fox, so apologies if you commented and we're not giving you your shout out. But a lot of people said Star Fox. And I think that could be Nintendo's. That could be a really really fun. It could be, it could, be PG. I mean, you could really make a good deal out of that. Stephen Kovac, said, and I think I said your last name wrong. I'm sorry, buddy. Toe Jam and Earl, which is kind of hot right now. Everybody's in the retro game stuff been talking about Toe Jam and Earl.
Yes. Mary Ashley said Oregon Trail,
which
I'm sure a movie's been made about this, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, I mean that's
there's got to be somebody who's died of dysentery.
But there needs to be like a straight up Okay, so let's dive into that. Sure, yeah. There's probably been a biopic of this type of thing where it's like legit and it's real.
What if House on the Prairie?
Right. What if? Okay, let's take this angle. So let's be studio execs. Okay, so Oregon Trail is about this kid who got a video game, and he's controlling or she's controlling this video game of Oregon Trail, and we go back and forth between his world and the actual video game world, and because he's making choices for what the Oregon Trail is going to be like. I think it'd be cool.
Okay, I think we should make the game Oregon Trail, and it's a horror movie, and it's a trail of organs.
Well, that leads into Richard's suggestion, which is Pac-Man. But here's the twist: it's an R rating with a horror twist. And I have a thought on this, James. I'm gonna pitch it to you real quick. All right, so you gotta kind of stretch your mind a little bit, and there's gonna be some Pac-Man purists out there that are not gonna like this. Pac-Man is about this big dude, okay? He's big, kind of round, big dude. His last name is Pac something, and so everybody used to call him Pac-Man. That's his nickname. And he finds himself in some sort of horror, haunted house type setting. So that's where the ghosts come in. And that's the movie. You've got Pac-Man. It's Pac-Man versus Pac-Man.
Okay. How are you going to introduce the pellets and the fruit?
The fruit,
the top part.
The food, and the pretzels and whatever else, like those are like his snacks because he's a big guy. The pellets, mothballs.
Mothballs in the attic.
Ghosts.
He just starts eating them.
No, he doesn't eat them. He collects them.
Okay.
Yeah, Pac-Man. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, so he doesn't eat them, but he collects them, and he finds the link that mothballs are like ghost repellents. Like they hate it. Yeah,
I see.
That's what my thought is. Yeah.
I like Malia's answer of she's not very sure about it, but Pitfall? Which, sure.
Yeah.
I would prefer it to be about Pitfall, the Mayan Adventure, the Super Nintendo Pitfall. I had the Super Pitfall on the NES, and that game was hot garbage. So I would go with the Mayan Adventure Pitfall would be the best.
That'd be a great adventure thing. We didn't talk about Uncharted and how that's just. I have a thought. We're going to take a detour on Uncharted. That movie has been in constant development, and I was driving one day and I had a thought that ever since Disney bought Star Wars, bought Lucasfilm, they got the rights, to Indiana Jones, and there's been this constant talk about there's this Indiana Jones movie and it's coming, and then it's gonna be this date, and now we're thinking this date. And I think Uncharted, they're trying to figure out when they can make this movie so it doesn't land the same year as Indiana Jones.
Maybe.
Just a thought.
They probably should have made it by now.
Yeah, that's true. Well, getting back to listener comments, Daniel Hoffman says Dragon's Lair. That's the Don Bluth Laserdisc arcade game, which was way too expensive for me growing up as a kid. And I know it's available now and you can play it and not spend $1 for every play. But I know, and he says Don Bluth's been working on this one for a while. I can get behind that, either animated in that Don Bluth style or straight up redone, make it into a movie. I think a little, it's got a little bit of humor. It's got a little bit serious. I think it'd be cool.
I think you definitely need to do it in the Don Bluth style. I think so.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it.
You could also make a Space Ace while you're at it,
Well, you save that one for the sequel.
Yeah. Dragon's Lair 2 Space Ace.
Right. From the
doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we need more context to Mike's suggestion. He said Dig Dug or Duck Hunt.
Well, he threw out a few. Yeah. So he's like, it's just a string of.
I just need to know the plot. You got to give me the plot of the Dig Dug movie.
You know what? I was thinking about Duck Hunt. Duck Hunt is a buddy comedy. It's you take whoever's hot, like the whoever fun comedians are out, right now, and it's them. It's a buddy weekend. They're going on this duck hunt. They have a comical dog that goes along with them, and it's a comedy. It's not a serious take on this thing. It's a buddy comedy about going hunting with your friend, and a dog that's partially CG that laughs when you don't hit ducks. There you go, Nintendo, you got it.
Very exciting. And then Dano says Splatterhouse, which I can go along with. Splatterhouse. It's people think you play the bad guy in Splatterhouse. However, you do not. You play somebody who was on a trip and puts on a very similar. I don't know how they didn't get sued for this, but a Jason mask. You put it on and you turn into this giant guy, and you're trying to save your girlfriend. So
you're the hero.
But a lot of people just looking at it think that it's not. But it's very gory and very, very fun game.
I had to look it up because this was definitely one of those games that, as a kid, it was like, don't look at that game.
Yeah, not a chance.
Nope. Well, our mutual friend James, we worked with him at camp growing up. Well, you were. I was an adult. We all were adults. But anyways, James.
I was an adult.
I know.
I was of drinking age, sir.
You were. I was trying to give context because I didn't put last names on this one. James again said Star Fox or Turok. Oh, and then he also threw out Tetris, starring Kevin Hart, The Rock, Gary Busey, and LeBron James. I would watch a Tetris movie. And he also wrote like that cast for any of these movies. He doesn't care what movie it is. It's just they could work in any of these.
Yes, absolutely.
100%. Yes, absolutely, James. 100% behind that.
Yeah, we got a couple more. Rich said he would love to see Paperboy, which, sure, I don't know what the antagonist of Paperboy would be, but I think you can make a pretty fun animated movie on Paperboy.
It'll be like a faith-based one of those movies. It'll be like about a paperboy who's doing this work to raise money for his mom who has cancer.
Or it could be like one of those Disney movies. What's that one? Brink. Where he like has to. He's a paper boy, but it turns out he's also really good at like downhill mountain biking because of all the obstacles on his paper route.
Oh, you just cracked it, dude. That's it.
To win the girl.
That's it.
Because everyone's into this mountain biking shit. He doesn't have time to practice because he's doing his paper route the whole time. But little do they know that that's best practice ever.
You can go home, James. I think you just cracked it. That's Paperboy. Hollywood, give us a call. My friend Mark Duck worked with him at a summer camp, different one. It says Castlevania. Now, is there a Castlevania? There's something, right? Isn't there an animated?
There's a Castlevania anime on Netflix that is incredible. And anyone who is a Castlevania fan or a horror, I don't know what you call that, Victorian horror, I don't know what that is, but that
Steampunky?
aesthetic or vampires or any of that, you should definitely watch that.
Got it.
It's very good.
That's cool.
Second season's way better than the first season, but watch the first season too.
Good to know. Our last one comes in from my friend Kyle, who says Echo the Dolphin. And I was like, really? Like Echo the Dolphin? Is that like a Disney nature thing? And then he was like, no, dude, there's like aliens in this movie, in this game.
There is, yeah. You have Echo the Dolphin and then Echo the Dolphin Tides of Time. I mean, it's Sega Genesis classic. I can't believe it wasn't on that list.
I didn't, again.
The other episode.
That's true. I didn't have a Genesis. I didn't, you're the Genesis kid. I do remember playing Echo the Dolphin. I remember thinking how cool the graphics and stuff, it felt, very realistic dolphin stuff. And of course, Sequest was big. And so I was like, but I never could play it long enough to get to the good stuff. I was like, where are the aliens? Where is this stuff? And I was like, that, my friend, could be a pretty cool movie, especially if there was like a really futuristic submarine, called the Sequest. And his name was Darwin.
If it makes you feel any better, I owned the game and I never got to the good stuff. And still own the game and have still never gotten to the good stuff. Well,
continuously we're getting more and more movies that are breaking that 30-40% Rotten Tomatoes, and Pokemon's looking good, so the future is good for video games. Hoping Sonic the Hedgehog doesn't kill my eventual Mega Man fantasy of having a cool Mega Man movie. We'll save that for a whole new show. But send us what video games would you like to see turned into movies? Send it to our Twitter. We're at the Geek State Pod. On Facebook, we're at facebook.com/the Geek State, and you can also find us on Instagram. We're under at the Geek State Podcast.
Let's look around the region and take our pick of the week.
Shut up and take my money.
All right, James, it's time for our pick of the week, where we recommend something that you should check out. So, James, what should we do? You go first, I go first. How does this work?
I'll go first. Why not? Why break tradition here at the Geek State?
That's right.
It should be Article 1. James goes first, which I don't know that I want to keep that rule. We might have to amend it. But okay. However, mine is kind of an anti-pick this week. I tried to find stuff that I would enjoy, both with the Zac Efron film and this thing. Both of them I'm saying avoid them, but this one for sure. I rented the movie Escape Room. It's a horror movie in which there's an escape room that everyone has to get out, kind of a la Saw, kind of, and it blew. It was awful. Oh. It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen, Chris.
I've
seen a lot of crummy movies.
All right, so skip Escape Room. It's official. It makes it Geek State canon. That's what we're doing here. Part of this part of the Geek State community here, making it canon. That's a big note. Did you rent it from your family video?
I did rent it from the family video.
Yes.
It's a new release, so it was $3.50, Chris.
Oh, how could you?
For one night, I should have just gone to the Red Box. I didn't even think about it.
Unbelievable.
But I could have added 5 nights for 50 extra cents, but I decided not to do that as I knew I was going to be watching it in one evening.
That's right. My pick of the week is a YouTube series from this guy named Chris Reinecker. I'm probably saying that wrong. But the title of the series is Adults Watch Star Wars for the First Time, and he just wrapped up the original trilogy on May the 4th. Which posts, happy Star Wars Day, everybody. And he's never seen Star Wars. Now, he does say that, he's familiar with some stuff from pop culture, but he's got some friends that are into Star Wars that kind of ask him questions and kind of help him along the way. They do this. It's really unique. It's kind of reverse Mystery Science Theater where they're facing the camera, but they've got a green screen behind them. There's the movie playing behind them, and they cut through all the big moments of the movies and his reactions to it. And he brings some new people onto each episode that haven't seen it either. And so they just wrapped up with Return of the Jedi. They're only about 15 minutes long. I found them quite enjoyable as a Star Wars fan, and you might too. And so that's our picks of the week from both Chris, myself, and James. And we'd love for you to be a part of the Geek State as well. And one of the ways you can do that is joining us over on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Just do a search for us and you'll find us. If you love the show and you want to tell other people about it, we'd love that as well. Just hit that retweet button, hit share, and all the stuff. The word of mouth is how podcasts grow, and we really do appreciate it when you do share that kind of stuff. We have a contest for a Stan Lee pop going on right now. I was going to announce it here on the show, and I found myself without any of the pieces of paper ready to go. So we will announce the winners on social media following this episode. So if you are listening to this as soon as it comes out, head to our Facebook page and reshare our most recent episode and try to squeeze in that last minute entry into the drawing for the Stan Lee Funko Pop. So from all of us here at the Geek State, stay excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.
Heads up, Nick Fury's calling you.
I don't really want to talk to Nick
Answer
Fury.
the phone.
Why?
Because if you don't talk to him, then I have to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. You sent Nick Fury to voicemail?
I gotta go. You do not ghost Nick Fury.
Blammo!
Whammo, blammo, kazammo.
Those are all words. Words we describe the podcast you just listened to. Whammo, blammo, kazammo. Oh, something was weird I noticed at Six Flags. They've got all the DC comic characters and stuff, and the capes and stuff that you can buy. So I know the Flash doesn't wear a cape, but they do sell a cape for the Flash, and he has the lightning bolt on the back. Which is the Shazam. They have a Shazam cape that you can buy now, and it just has the word Shazam
instead of the lightning bolt.
Just
to not be confused with the Flash cape.
That's what I surmised.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that is interesting. They have a Wonder Woman cape too. She doesn't wear it.
Neither does Aquaman.
Oh, he should though.
They should only sell 2 capes, basically. Batman and Superman. End of list. Well, I guess Supergirl and Batgirl and Batwoman.